I run the blog Reviews of a Shameless Fangirl, which you can find at yafangirlreviews.blogspot.com. It's 2016, which means it's a new year and time to start some new books and some new reviews with some new hair. I went pink. So what I've decided to do today for this vlog is a review of Blood Red Road by Moira Young. It's not a raving review. I actually didn't really like this book, so it's going to be the first time talking about a book that I didn't necessarily love. So Blood Red Road is the first book in the Dustlands series. How I ended up with this book is I was actually at the bookstore and it was recommended to me. The guy walked up and said, "What are you looking for? Anything specific? Do you like the Hunger Games?" I said, "Sure, yeah, I love the Hunger Games, of course." So he recommended this book. His exact words were, "If you like the Hunger Games, you will like this. It's way better." No, it's not. It's not way better. What I found really difficult to read about the book was the dialogue itself. I've seen movies, I watch TV shows, you talk to people that use slang. For the most part, it's okay. When you hear it, your brain can kind of make the connections, and it's sort of here and there. It's not something constant that you're trying to wrap your brain around. This was not the case for me. I could not deal with it at all. So when I started going through that dialogue, pretty much just went, ah! Yeah, that's how bad it was. The kind of white heat day where you can hear tires crack. What? I literally couldn't handle it. I pushed through. I kept reading the book because I thought, he said it's better than Hunger Games. I'm going to love this book. The tag even says on the front cover, "Better than the Hunger Games. This book will blow you away." No. I couldn't understand half of what was going on in the book and in the story because I felt like my brain was constantly reeling, trying to process what was being said in the book, never mind what was happening around them. But I think there are different ways that this setting could have been portrayed without my brain having to suffer through this shorthand constantly. Another issue I had with the book wasn't just the dialogue. If it had just been the dialogue and I continued reading it, which I did, and I'd loved the story, then I would have totally forgotten about that and I wouldn't have cared as much. But that wasn't the only problem. Things were sort of blatantly placed. Allusion was not really subtle. It was very obvious. One of the major issues in the story is the Four Horsemen, who they're constantly running from. Really? The Four Horsemen? The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? The whole Dustland settings, the post-apocalyptic desert, felt a lot like Mad Max. And then the fighting, and I guess here is the point where people say that it's like the Hunger Games. The kids in the book do their fighting in a coliseum. The coliseum. Again, that's kind of a blatant placement of historical repetition. We all know gladiator slaves were forced to fight in the Roman Colosseums for entertainment. The kids are forced to fight in the Colosseum for entertainment. To the death. Literally like the Hunger Games, but not unique. In the Hunger Games, at least, there was an alteration of the representation of how these fights were taking place, how they were sent to their deaths. They were fighting in an arena that was being controlled. So there was something new there, something different. This just felt like, oh, what happened in the past? Okay, let's take that, let's place it here. We'll send them in like that. And another thing I didn't really understand is how Saba could be the champion in this Colosseum fight ring. They're threatening her with the life of her sister. That sounds familiar.
I volunteer! I volunteer as tribute!
but she has no real skills. She's a girl who grew up in a shanty in the desert, hoping for rain, never really done much, and suddenly she's a UFC champion. I hate to keep comparing it to the Hunger Games, but when the cover compares it to the Hunger Games and when the bookstore compares it to the Hunger Games, I feel like I have to compare it to the Hunger Games. There's no other way to get around it. At least in the Hunger Games, Katniss was a hunter. She had her bow and arrow skills, and that was what ended up getting her to the end. She had skills. This is why she succeeded. She didn't just get thrown into the arena, into the Hunger Games, and happen to suddenly be the strongest fighter out there. If that were the case, she never would have won. It's because she had these hunting skills that she won. And we don't get really any of that in Blood Red Road. She just can suddenly fight, and she's suddenly the best. And she's fighting against kids who have been fighting there for God knows how long. So it just didn't make sense, and it was really frustrating to read. And I have a tendency to overlook those kinds of things sometimes in a book if I really like what's happening in the story. I mean, it's a book. Of course, there are things that are going to be unrealistic, but there are certain things that shouldn't be unrealistic. If your character is a weak, underdeveloped person, they shouldn't suddenly be able to take down a 250-pound fighter. That just doesn't make any sense. So I gave this book 2 stars. I personally cannot recommend it to people. I hate to be negative about a book. I honestly do, but in this case, I really had to be honest because so many people had talked about it and they're comparing it to the Hunger Games, and it frustrates me so much because it's nothing like the Hunger Games. And I really wanted to like this book because so many people had talked about it. I'd started seeing it everywhere. It's by a Canadian author. I'm a Canadian. That would have been awesome if I loved this book. And there's a whole series now coming, and I would have loved to be able to get into it. And I just couldn't, and I can't, and I'm sorry, but I didn't like it. And the dialogue itself was probably the deal breaker for me. But if that's not really an issue for you, and you think that you could totally handle that, then go ahead and read it. You might like it, you might not care about the unrealistic fighting and all of that. So yeah, if you can get through the dialogue, if you can read an entire book written like that, and you think that you can push through it, go ahead. I did push through it, but I still finished the book not being happy about it, and overall not enjoying the story. Yeah, so that was kind of a downer experience because that was really one of those where I wanted to love it and I didn't, and it made me sad. But what I can say is I'm excited for 2016, and I have so many other new books that I just finished reading that I can't wait to do vlogs about and to write on the blog. If you want to check out the full written review for this, you can check it out at www.yafangirlreviews.blogspot.com. There are also other reviews there that I've recently posted, such as Acne, Asthma, and Other Signs You Might Be Half Dragon, Angels of Moray, The Prophecy of Shadows, #1 in the Elemental series, and Snow Globe. So those are the most recent reviews. I may do vlogs about those, I may not, so I definitely recommend you go and check those out. All right, thanks for watching, and happy reading.